and we are going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Erica Kraus. I am head of brand and community at 8Fig. At 8Fig, we are passionate about helping sellers scale to that next level of growth with our planning and funding platform. We infuse continuous capital into every stage of the supply chain. So what we've been doing through the Scale Smarter series is talking about ways to optimize every stage of your supply chain, from sourcing and inventory to freight and logistics. And now we're talking about marketing. So we're really excited you're here today. My co-host Liran Hirschkorn is on the call. He's been partnering with us in this series so far. And today, we are going to talk about marketing tactics and to maximize success. Liran is an experienced marketer, but I also want to invite our other panelists to the call. You guys are in for a total win. We've got some an amazing panel today of highly experienced sellers and marketers. And we've got a breadth of experience also from Amazon to D2C, also testing out new platforms and new opportunities in the world of marketing. So I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. We will make this available for you later, but I want to kick off by just inviting you guys to introduce yourselves. So Steve, I'm going to start with you. If you don't mind telling us who you are, what you do in your day-to-day, what platform do you tend to work on? We'd love to get to know you more.
Yeah. So my name is Steve, and I run an e-commerce blog over at mywifequitherjob.com. A podcast of the same name where I interview other e-commerce entrepreneurs. And I also run an annual event called the Seller Summit. I run a 7-figure store with my wife. We sell in both our own online store and Amazon. And most of our revenue comes from the DTC side. So that's what I hope to contribute today.
Awesome. And Norm, I'd love for everybody to get to know you as well.
Okay. Hi, I'm Norm Farrar. I have a podcast called Lunch with Norm every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern Central or Standard. But I also have a group mentoring program with Tim Jordan called Private Label Legion. I sell on Amazon. I've started back in 2014, I think. I've been selling on e-com since about 1995-ish was, I think, my first e-com store. And anyways, I do have a couple of Amazon service businesses that I work with, and a product innovation company. So that's about me in a nutshell.
I love it. And last but definitely not least, my co-host Liran, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me on. Been selling on Amazon since 2014. And today I'm the founder and CEO of Incrementum Digital. Primarily, we help brands scale on Amazon using Amazon advertising and Amazon DSP.
Amazing. Cool. Well, I want to jump right into some good stuff and ask you guys, each of you, Liran included, what is the single most important thing you guys are doing right now in terms of marketing that is driving the most success for you?
I'll start. I think there's been kind of a shift in 2022, and to some extent, or what I see from sellers out there is more of a focus on getting back to kind of the fundamentals and the basics of marketing, as opposed to the tactics of marketing. We saw in the last year Amazon get a little bit more specific about certain marketing tactics like rebates. We've seen some of those services kind of shut down or shift what they're doing, and as a result, it's forced sellers to try to optimize instead of around kind of tactics to improving things like their listings, their creative, their advertising. So I would say it's not one thing, but I think the strategy overall for sellers has shifted somewhat.
Awesome. What about you guys?
Yeah, so for me, it's about email marketing and SMS and actually selling more to our existing customers. I think most shop owners are always focused on getting new traffic and new sales, but they kind of neglect the people that have already bought from them. And in general, it's a lot easier to sell from people who've already purchased from you. So we're in the wedding industry with our store, and our repeat customer rate is actually pretty low unless people are getting divorced all the time, even though the divorce rate is pretty high here. So our repeat customer rate is actually only 12%, but that 12% actually contributes 36% of our annual revenue. So SMS and email, all the owned marketing platforms, we focus on because no one can take that away from you.
And Steve, is that primarily just through cross-selling additional wedding products to those same customers that are getting married, or is that something that happens
No, actually,
6 or 12 months down the line? Like, how do you work on a strategy to resell
Yeah.
what would
So
seem
what
to be
we
like
do actually is we look for customers who buy an unusually large number of our products. And it turns out that over the years, we discovered that these people tend to be event planners and wedding planners. So we reach out to them via the phone. Like, we don't email anything. We just call them up and say, hey, we just noticed you bought a lot. If you're a planner, you know, we'll give you a dedicated rep, special coupon code, and we'll just make sure anything that you order makes it on time. Like, we'll have a human on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. So, you know, something you would think is totally, you know, unheard of, right? Like using the phone for
Yeah, that's why I emphasize it, because people are always like, what, you call them up without asking? Well, I mean, they already bought from you a lot, right? So they know who you are, they trust you. So
right.
Yeah.
Especially in e-commerce, right? You wouldn't think that would happen. But if you're if you have Shopify, then you're getting the customer's phone number. And if it makes sense, then, you know, maybe call them to offer additional support or how to install a product or something to improve the customer experience. It's pretty interesting where you don't get that information, you know, like on Amazon, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always done some form of email marketing, but this year I had a person that I was talking to that really improved our open rates. So we thought we were doing okay with about 23% open rate. He was able to get us up over 80%. And it blew me away by doing like just a few simple steps. And it comes down to brand and who's really listening to your brand. And once you do that, you know, you get the ears. But one of the, and you know, I wanted to share notes with Steve just before this, but we never got a chance to about email marketing, because one of the things that I haven't done a good job with is SMS. And I understand that one of the simple things going back to, you know, when I had hair was direct mail. Direct mail is making a comeback. You know, if you know your customer, and this is the thing, just knowing your customer, if you know them, then you can ship them off direct mail and you could give them a code and if you notice, there's a lot less direct mail nowadays. But for me, and this might not be in the infancy stage, but as you grow, some of the things that we're doing, and I'm very strong, for me, building up your Google profile or your Google business profile, some people know it as Google My Business, is an incredible way to increase traffic. And we've seen this furniture store. So this is a retail store who's going out of business in, it was last year. We've seen their traffic get up to over 2 million people, you know, and they're afloat. And it's because of how they marketed on Google My Business. So they were able to drive a ton of traffic over. You can do that on Google Business Profile. That's the proper name of it. But you can take not only your Shopify store, your Chewy, if you're in pets, your Amazon, your shop, any of your platforms that you're on, and point your pictures and make them shoppable images on Google. And Google will provide clickless searches if you've got the content there to back it up. It's really cool. And then just quickly, the other things like what I've noticed that's changed. I mean, China's completely changed. People are sourcing other ways. There's not a lot of Me Too products, depending on the business niche you're in, but selling on different platforms, even going to small mom and pop retail stores. There's a ton of them, and they all want different, unique kind of products. And if you have that product, that could be a secondary income that, you know, could really help offset your Amazon income, let's say. Anyways, there's lots, but that's a few things.
Hey, Norm,
love it.
can you give me an example of a subject line that got an 80% open rate? I'm
Yeah,
just
I
very curious.
wanted to ask
Yeah.
the same.
You know what, Steve, this is crazy. I will, like, afterwards, I will show you a list of consistent 65 to 83% open rates. And I thought, like, the guy that taught me this was Adrian Savage. And we said, we thought this, Kelsey was on, Liran, I think you know Kelsey. And, you know, we were talking and he said, well, 23%, that was our average. He said, oh, wow, that's too bad. And all he did was, by grooming your list and by getting rid of people who don't want your list or who want your product, you started to build it up. So just today on Private Label Legion, our email got 83% open rate. Crazy.
I just want to add that it's actually important to prune your list, because all the ISPs, if there's a whole bunch of people that don't open, then it actually reduces your delivery rate among everyone that you send to. So yeah, okay, I get it now, Norm. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, Liran, getting back to basics. And I think we have, you know, a variety of folks on this call. We hear from sellers all the time who are really excited about a new trend and they're starting to pursue it. But when you dig down into the data, what they're doing in their day-to-day, their marketing basics aren't even in order. So I think this is a perfect room to ask the question, what are those basics that you guys are doing every single day before you start pulling in new tactics and new trends? What are the things, you guys have been doing this a while. So what has sustained your success over the years, that as things have come and gone, these things have kind of kept you rooted in successful business and marketing tactics?
I mean, I think when it comes to Amazon, you know, there's only two things, and probably in any business, right? Online, there's two things that you have to focus on, which is traffic and conversion. So on the traffic side, it's getting the right kind of traffic. I think keyword research is an incredibly important part of Amazon. And, you know, I think there's people that wing it, and then there's people that do it in a much more data-driven approach. So using the right tools, we use Helium Cerebro, we use Data Dive on top of that, Brandon's tool, understanding what the competitors are ranking for, looking at relevancy, and really doing a good job of targeting the right keywords, and also making sure those keywords are in your title, in your backend search terms. So I think back to basics. On top of that, features and benefits in your images and in your A+ content, cross-selling. And then, you know, I would add that the ability to iterate based on customer feedback and responses and reviews. You know, as an example, I launched a product last year that was a wallet for the iPhone 12 and 13. It was a magnetic wallet that only fit that product, but it seemed like people were buying it for the regular iPhone and then giving a bad review when they realized that it wasn't magnetic for that product. So we had to really change the images to make it like super clear. Like we had a big like X and an image with like iPhone, you know, 11 models and lower, and then 12 or 13, you know, like with a big green check, and iterating your images based on also the customer feedback. And then, you know, there's so many other things to optimize your storefront, video ads, A/B testing, copy in your sponsored brand ads, and using tools like PickFu to also A/B test your images. One thing I know Thrashio, and speaking to them recently, did was they took their top 50 best-selling products and they basically like did an A/B test on the main image across all those products. Even though those products are their best selling, already selling really well, they were still thought it made sense. So even, you know, not just looking at your products that are not selling that well, but even your best selling products, there's still room to optimize and you know, and improve upon those products, and kind of taking that attitude that you really need to continuously test, and it's not just kind of like a one-time thing.
It's awesome. What about you, Norm? What are the basics every day that you're doing and have been doing for years that help you in terms of marketing?
I think consistency is very important. So if we're going to be doing any form of marketing, we do have all these different templates because nothing's ever the same, but we create SOPs for everything. So we want to make sure that if somebody's doing something, it's exactly the same. If something's working, let's try it. We do a lot of split testing, but I would say that probably reviewing and monitoring, just like what Liran said about going back, making sure if you're dropping in the keywords, like why, if you're making any changes to your listings, we make changes all the time to our listings. What happens? Is it good, bad, or ugly? And if it is, then you have to change it back. But I think split testing is probably one of the biggest things. Also, I don't know about everybody here, but when I hire a VA, the VA is not your answer to everything. They're not a professional at everything. They're probably pretty good at something, right? And they usually have to be trained, to get to that level. I'd rather have multiple people. Everybody might be different on this, but I like to have somebody like who's a pro at maybe TikTok influencers. I'm an old guy. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to train, and I don't dance. So
Come on.
there. Okay.
That's a detriment to society, Norm.
But you know what I'm saying. So if I'm writing copy or if I'm writing Facebook ads or anything like that, I'd rather hire somebody who can write a funnel better than I can. That's important. Another thing. So other than hiring just quality people, it's also external traffic. Trying to figure out what works best, because a lot of people will work with Facebook or they'll work with Instagram or both of them because, that's what people do. Their demographic, their audience, if it's a Pinterest audience, well, why aren't you taking a look at Pinterest and forgetting about the others or just doing a spritz here or there? So understanding your audience is really a good part of your marketing. And I do want to plug this. I have nothing to do with this company, but Spark Toro, Rand Fishkin's app, will help you understand the influencers, who's listening to your competition. And it's a very simple process to understand who your demographic is to help you better understand who you should be targeting and how you should be targeting. So those are a few things.
Norm, you bring up a really good point on the let's say VA side. I recently spoke to somebody who said to me, how do you have success hiring, people in the Philippines? Like, I just don't seem to have luck with it. Like, I hire people, they stay on, they go, right? They they're every week I have like a different sob story about from some people, from some of them.
An emergency.
Yeah, an emergency. And I said to them, honestly, it's your processes and systems around hiring and onboarding those people onto your team. And actually, I'll share. This is my sister and her business, so I can share and shame her here publicly. But because I gave her some advice about hiring, but she doesn't have the processes and systems in place. And I said to her, yeah, you can't just hire and like expect a VA to run seamlessly on their own. You need to have systems and processes and training and onboarding. You also need to pay the right amount. I think she was paying lower. I think people would take the jobs, but again, I think if she paid a little bit higher rates, you would get better quality people. And it's not just about finding the cheapest person at the lowest hourly rate. And definitely agree with you that you want to bring people on to have a specialty and also train them on how you work as well, or help you build out those SOPs. But if you find someone that, like when I see a resume, we work with Amazon advertising. When I see a resume of somebody and they say they're an expert at, Facebook ads and TikTok and Google and Amazon, I know that they're probably not very good at any one of those things, because it's just very, very difficult to have expertise in all those areas. So really focusing on hiring around a specific focus makes a lot of sense. I totally agree with that.
Now, Steve,
And-
you're in the
yeah.
D2C space, so I did want to call that out. So Liran and Norm have given some basics around Amazon that can apply. Some can apply both ways, but Steve, love to hear from you on your basics.
I just had something to add about the VAs
Oh,
before I
okay.
talk
Sorry,
about
I
the,
interrupted you.
then I'll go into the
Okay, but then tell me.
I think you have to like be really, really strict before you hire any VA, because you're going to be taking this time to train them. So I put, like, even in the job description, I had them jump through hoops and whatnot, just to make sure they're paying attention. To me, when I hire a VA from the Philippines, I actually don't expect them to have all the skills, because I expect to train them up. So as long as they're detail oriented and they're willing to learn, that's usually good enough for me. But there are services out there that will actually find you, VAs that are already trained in e-commerce, specifically Amazon, actually, which I've had good luck with. So to answer the original question, so I've been running my e-commerce. This is going to be my 15th year. And what I've found is that over the years, what you started out doing that was working, you've kind of lost track of it. This happens to me because there's something new that comes out, and then you go spend some time and you try something else. And I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. We just sat down and we were doing like all these different things. And you got to sit down, you got to figure out what's bringing in the money. I'll give you an example here. So recently, last year, Apple kind of, I don't want to say destroyed Facebook ads, but they certainly hurt them. So I went and I looked at the lifetime value of our customers coming in from all of our channels. And it turns out that Facebook was actually one of the lowest lifetime values. Like, we get a lot of customers from Facebook, but they don't spend that much money. Whereas Google and organic SEO is where our biggest customers are at. So this past year, we were focusing on SEO. We already talked about our own marketing methods. So SEO and Google ads, and just SEO alone, just the last year, we're up almost between 3 and 4x of our traffic just on focusing on what's already working. And so I would say that if you're going and you're looking at your business, I would find out what's working and double down on it until you've saturated that traffic source or acquisition source.
Steve, do you think the lifetime value of Facebook versus like a Google is lower because somebody on Google has a search intent, they're looking for something, versus Facebook, you're interrupting them? And that's the reason they weren't, like, it's more of an impulse buy versus like intentional, which is through let's say Google? Or why do you think you were getting lower quality buyers?
Yeah. I don't know the answer for sure, but I suspect that, our biggest customers are going to be those event planners, and they're not on Facebook looking for cat pictures and whatever. The people that we get from Facebook are people who just love our products. They love handkerchiefs. I didn't realize a group existed until I started advertising. But yeah, they're not like the big business buyers that really sustain our business in the long run.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So kind of knowing your audience and knowing where they are.
Yeah. I mean, they do make up a good chunk of revenue, like collectively, but in terms of just our team is small, and if we want to focus on one thing, we want to focus on the whales and not the minnows.
Steve, what are some of the tools that you're using every day that, like, they're always, your dashboards are always up, you're in them, you're looking at them from a D2C perspective?
I would say if I had to choose one tool, it would be Klaviyo. Klaviyo does email and SMS, and there's actually a really nice dashboard. It tells you exactly how much you're making per email send. And then outside of that, I also have PostScript for SMS. And I've actually strayed away from analytics because I found that after Apple started blocking things, my analytics results actually aren't that accurate anymore. So I'm actually looking for other solutions now. Actually looking at an open source homegrown solution right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Steve, one of the things you mentioned when we were talking before this was that sellers are not, or e-commerce sellers are not emailing their list enough.
Yes.
How often, or how would you how often would you recommend to email your list? And I think maybe the reason people don't email enough is because they're obviously afraid somebody's going to unsubscribe, and maybe they don't know what to say other than giving a discount or a promo.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not easy to develop that content when you just have like maybe a product.
There's actually also a question that kind of correlates with this in the Q&A right now around offering free ebooks or content. How do you keep your emails rich? Any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah. So when it comes to email, the amount that you can send really depends on who you're targeting. And so most people I found, they just blast their entire list. And that's generally not the right way to do it. You want to segment out. And if we just talk about, I mean, this is a loaded question, but if we just talk about some basic segmentation, you're going to have those customers who are in love with you. They open all your emails, they buy a lot and they buy often. Those people you can email more often. And those people I generally don't send discounts to because I know they're going to buy. So I try to send them things that make them feel special, like new product launches and that sort of thing. Then there's people who have purchased once and they purchased a lot, but they haven't purchased again. For those people, I might tease a discount just to try to get them to buy something again, because if I can get someone to buy something twice, chances are they're going to be a high lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people who have never bought. Like, I'll just do whatever it takes to just get them to buy one thing, but I won't send these large discounts to the people who've already bought. So, and then there's people in between, like people who buy often, but they don't spend a lot of money. So we try to like bundle things together or try to encourage, we'll cross sell those people a little bit more. So the answer really isn't, it's not as simple as, how many times can you email someone? You email based on the frequency, depending on the customer that you're targeting.
And that's what Klaviyo is good with, right? In terms of giving you that data on the list and how to go about in terms of separating the marketing strategy. Yeah. And one thing I will say is that most people don't send enough. So I'll just give you an example. Like whenever we send out a discount promotion, we'll send out the promotion, we'll resend to non-opens, we'll send it in the middle of the promotion, resend to non-opens, we'll send it at the end of the promotion. And if it worked really well, we'll send it again to extend it one day. If people are really in love with your products, they're not going to unsubscribe. And the people that do unsubscribe, they probably weren't really interested in being on your list in the first place. So, and that cuts your costs when they unsubscribe.
Yeah. So these have been really dynamic days for marketers. What do you think are and sellers in general, when you think about supply chain, but specifically about marketing, what do you guys think are the main challenges that that sellers are facing when it comes to their marketing from a D2C perspective, but also Amazon?
Well, new sellers are usually, a lot of new sellers are afraid to come out at a higher price point.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is they bottom feed and they have to do lots of just tons of volume, where if you take a look at it, I'm talking Amazon now, but if you go into Amazon and you take a look at that final search page, you'll probably find really 3 tiers of pricing. And depending on where you are is that tier, that's the pricing tier that you'll go out at. But I recently did this and I took a look at Dead Sea Mud. So Dead Sea Mud is Dead Sea Mud. So the bottom tier was $6, almost $7 to $14.95. Where the next real big grouping was around the the $19.99 to around the 40 point. And then the highest level with the biggest grouping was $79 to $95. Same mud. Also, the lower end was 8 ounces to 16 ounces. The higher end was a 3.5 ounce, 8 ounce jar. The difference was packaging. It was all packaging, all quality, all high level copy. So you can do this as long as, if you take a look at your listings and you do competitive analysis, keyword research, great, competitive analysis, look at your competitors. And if you can be equal to or better, you can go out at that price point. If your product sucks, and you have a great listing, it's not going to work. If your listing sucks and you got a great price point, it's not going to work. And I don't want to talk too much about this, but we saw this with a $49 knife. The cost of goods was $16. It was out at $49. We changed the packaging, which was just about $1.50 or so. I don't remember the exact change, but it was a rigid box with an outer box like an iPhone box. We were able to go from $69 up to $124. It sits there today between $99 and $124. $3 more, we got a wood case, and the wood case had a nice lining on the inside. It's the same knife, except it was hammered instead of layered. Same knife, same $16, is out selling on Amazon right now for around $224 perceived value. So
Right.
what I like, one of the things that you can do, the biggest things that you can do marketing wise, is make sure you come out at the price point or at that tier level you want to be at, and make sure that it looks that way.
Yeah.
So I want to say, oh, sorry, go.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Steve.
no.
I was just gonna say, I want to second Norm's point. Like, I think if anyone's starting out, and I noticed on the poll, there are some people just starting out. I feel like you should just start out targeting the high end. It makes your life so much easier because it improves your advertising since you have more to work with. And it improves your customer service because the way we run things is if anyone complains about our product, we just let them keep it and we just refund them. You know, this is with our store. So
Yep.
any crazy bride that gets mad at us and is about to yell at us, we just say, hey, you can keep it for free. You don't have to send it back and we'll give you a refund. They instantly become nice again.
I'm gonna, Erica, I'm gonna share my screen for a quick second. 'Cause
Okay.
as Norm was talking, this was not planned, but as Norm was
Yeah.
talking, I said,
Surprises from Liran.
I said, let's go look at Dead Sea Mud on Amazon, right? And we talked a little bit in the beginning about like, what's the opportunity still? Like, is Amazon saturated and stuff? And like, the first things I see here is just, for the most part, really bad packaging with stuff that's not selling well, because we have the BSR here. And when I look at these products, some of these are Dead Seas, obviously in Israel, and some of these are products like made in Israel. They're and come from there, and they're not. They probably had prior packaging. They're not built for the digital shelf. And you know, this is kind of like what the one of the biggest sellers. And you can see this is like a render, but like, and it's more optimized for e-commerce. But like, here's your competition, right? On page one, things where the packaging just doesn't look beautiful. And then again, you have some of the better sellers out there that are just made their packaging really big, really stand out for e-commerce. And
Oh, by the way, Liran,
Yes.
that video one, I
Yep.
can tell you right now, they're selling it too low.
Too low, right? 12
Yeah.
bucks, 1100.
They could easily get a lot more just by the look, even though it's not great packaging.
Right.
Anyways, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. And then, then I look at something else, and I look at this brand, which, they have a little bit like keep your cool, get your glow on, deep detox, right? They have some branding, right? If I were to go into this space right now, which is, yes, very competitive, I would do packaging kind of like this with some kind of like messaging, something different than, every packaging like this that's selling well, and definitely not this kind of stuff that just looks, generic and not great. But like even this, like a pretty competitive product, you just see like, again, I would say terrible packaging for the digital shelf, which I would almost guarantee these three products and a bunch of the other ones were not built for Amazon e-commerce versus this, right? Which looks like it probably was, but again, this one was not. And this is your competition. So there's still room, I believe, if you were to come in and you built some kind of packaging, something, maybe the bottle shape like this with, get your glow on, like totally different kind of packaging look type of customer, you can come in and differentiate in this space where, again, you would say like every product here is the same, but there's a way to make the customer feel differently about the product. And this is the kind of, research that I think you need to do when you are thinking about what your product is going to be. What do the products look like on Amazon right now? What is it going to look like again on Amazon if you're selling there against a white background image, right? It's not the same packaging you should have on the retail shelf or in a, maybe on your online store is what you might have for Amazon. How can I differentiate? How can I do things that are differently? And I think to Norm's point, talking about new sellers, they're not doing enough of that differentiation. They're more concerned about, getting their first product up and getting into Amazon. And a lot of times they're not reading all the reviews from competitors and really focusing on making a great product where you don't have to fight for reviews and on just reviews and price. And the reason why I think you need more and more money today to launch a product on Amazon is everybody has more reviews and there's more competition. And if you are just coming in with a similar product to generally what's out there, then yeah, you're going to be fighting for reviews and price. But if you make a somewhat different product and you don't allow the consumer to compare apples to apples, then you're not just being compared on, reviews of price. I don't know if I spoke about this, I think maybe on the last webinar, but I mentioned I had a baby and I was shopping looking for crib mattresses. And my wife mentioned to me this one brand she said is well known in the space. So I looked it up. So all the crib mattresses are about $50 to $100 or $50 to $120. And this particular brand is $300 and something. And what this company did was they made theirs more breathable. Okay. And the reason that's important is because there's risk of suffocation. And people say you can literally take your face, put it in like right into the product, you can still breathe, right? And if you have a baby that's like I guess after they're a few months old, they sleep kind of on with their face into the crib, you're worried about that suffocation and you're willing to pay $300 instead of, $75 for a mattress. And they came in, they differentiated the product. They came up with something that, from a marketing standpoint, you can motivate people in multiple ways. One of them is fear. And they also solved a problem for people who have those fear. It's probably a gimmick, in terms of, does it actually save lives? Like what are the percentages? What are the real numbers? But at the end of the day, they came up with something that differentiated the product and they're able to charge a premium as a result. And they have great reviews. And I think maybe there is a use case for babies that do sleep more with their head kind of into the mattress. If I had that, I'd probably buy the product. So I think really thinking about your product and taking more time to think about your product is more important than ever, because in the good old days, when we started 2014, 2015, you could just put up almost any product that had search volume and could be popular. And there was just not enough good competition on the platform where you can go in and you could take market share. That's no longer the case. So today, to break into a product, you either have to break into Amazon, let's say, you either have to bully your way in with money, like you're willing to lose money long enough until you build up enough reviews, until you become relevant so that you could take market share, or you do it by not allowing people to compare apples to apples. And that's something that takes more thought, maybe more money on the product development side of things. One of the people we had in this webinar series, if you didn't see the whole series, was a company called Gemba. Their entire mission is to help you actually do product development and design a product that has a differentiated strategy and maybe unique IP. And I think more and more you need to do those kind of things to have success without bullying your way into a product. Again, unless you come in very well funded, where you don't necessarily need to do that. You could just bully your way to the top. But for most people starting out, I think focusing on your product is really important, and not enough sellers, I think, are doing that.
Well, and specifically the creative and packaging and like the way you're displaying your product in the digital environment.
Definitely. And that's very much true for, anything in the health and beauty space, right? Because a lot of times that's mainly how you can differentiate your product. But, like you saw the products on that page, to me, that kind of cool, get your glow on is going to appeal to a totally different customer, than some packaging in a brown paper bag that looks like I might want to put my lunch in there, and not a Dead Sea, mask, right? And that's going to appeal to different kinds of, of consumers.
And that's definitely critical from like the images in marketplaces, but also creative is critical in D2C. And if you were searching the web and found these products, you're looking for the one that resonates the most with you, that's clear on the value that it's going to add to your life. And I think those things can definitely be underappreciated.
Yes. And one of the things, that I think as Amazon sellers, we're a little bit, I would say, fortunate with, is that we don't have to think a lot about creative for our ads. Yes, there's video ads and there's some customization in sponsored brands and sponsored display, but for the most part, 70-80% of spend is on sponsored products, which there is no creative aspect to. But with sellers that are D2C and Shopify, creative, is something as far as I know, you need to refresh regularly so people don't get like fatigue. And I think Steve mentioned before the webinar, mentioned to us that because of the iOS changes, you have to get even better with your creative, right? In order to have success on platforms like Facebook.
Yeah. So let me just give like this example that I love. Before, when Facebook was easier, you didn't really have to keep track of the numbers. You didn't really have to like make these amazing creatives. But now that things have gotten harder, you really have to figure out how to put out good creatives. Let me just give you an example. There's this soap. Are you guys familiar with Dr. Squatch?
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that if you're trying to sell soap, you would just sell like the benefits, right? It makes your skin smooth and whatnot. But what Dr. Squatch is really selling is sex. Am I allowed to say this on the webinar? Like if you look at their ads, it's always like women going, "Oh, I just love the way my man smells. I can't wait to jump him when I get home." Right. And so I don't know if anyone's here has read Cashvertising, but that book talks about the Life Force 8. Like people want, it could be one of different things. It could be survival. It could be enjoyment of life, freedom from fear. You mentioned FOMO or like fear earlier, sexual companionship, comfortable living conditions, social approval, care and protection of loved ones. Like those are where you're at. You're not actually selling the product. You're selling that instead. So.
Yeah, and in looking at Dr. Squatch, looks like they had a Super Bowl commercial that basically says there's nothing more attractive than good hygiene, right? So
very to the nose, on the nose there.
Exactly. So like what's the product and what are you really selling, right? Like and thinking about your creative, because I guess if you're talking to that man, then if it's a men's soap and just smooth skin.
Like I don't care what I use. I just use whatever my wife has in there. But if it's pitched in a different way.
Right. You might have an opinion.
One thing I wanted to say about costs. One thing that I'm starting to like teach to the students in my class is to build an audience first. I mean, you're right, you can buy your way in, but if you can put out content, build an audience of people. You don't even have to think of the product first. Based on this audience that you build, you ask them what they're looking for, and then you create the product after you already have the audience. That makes launching on Amazon a hell of a lot easier. You already have the email list, and you don't have to bully your way in that way. It takes a little longer though.
Yeah, Steve, I was going to ask you, like, what's a reasonable time frame somebody should give themselves, or that it should take to say, okay, like you convinced me, I'm going to take the long path, the not the get rich quick path to trying to make a product work. I'm going to build an audience, put out content. How long should it take me to get to the point where I can launch a product to them? And it doesn't seem like that was my whole agenda.
I think it just depends on which medium that you choose. Like if it's the written word, I would say at least 6 months to a year. I've had friends that just killed it on TikTok within like the first month. One of my buddies who I had on my podcast, he made $35,000 off of one TikTok that just went viral. And he didn't have a link to his site or anything. All they did is they Googled his handle, they found his products, and they just bought it.
Wow.
Now, granted, it depends on the type of products that you sell. Like if you're selling like, I don't want to rip on like office products, but something that's kind of like boring and commonplace, that's probably not going to be as easy to sell as something that's kind of unique and, high end. That has, easy to determine benefits. So it really depends on what you sell. But yeah, if you're going to go to the content route, I generally say at least 6 months to a year.
One of the case studies that 8Fig has done, and we just put in the comments on Zoom here, and you can find on the site under case studies, is a company called Glitch. I had a chance to meet their founder. There's three founders in that company, and they sell like a energy drink for gamers. Well, one of the founders is a YouTuber with like 8 million subscribers. And they used that audience to launch their product and like sell out multiple times,
launch subsequent products. So launch one and then continue to kind of build on top of that.
And so an idea here too is well, it's easy for me to say, okay, go out and build 8 million subscribers on YouTube. But another idea here is that, you could go out and try to partner with an influencer, right? Like a YouTuber's main skill set may not be developing products. Maybe you already have experience on Shopify or Amazon. You're able to go build a relationship with somebody maybe in a space that you care about, and go partner with them and say, look, I'll help create the product. You have input. We'll use your audience. I'll do all the operations. And it could be an amazing an amazing partnership and way to launch your product if you're already, you're sort of skipping the part of building your own audience, bypassing that, obviously, giving up part of the company, but that it could be well worth it if you get to partner with the right person to to launch a product. And again, another aspect is that now you can see people like you see some brands doing this, like actually crowdsourcing their next product ideas. I know there was a company on Shark Tank, I think they're called like the Red Dress Company, or I think something to that effect. They were on Shark Tank, and one of the ways they had amazing success was they showed different like dress designs to their audience on Facebook, and they like do polls on it, and then the one that's really liked is the one they actually produce and sell. And they're giving the you already feel invested, right? If I voted on something and I said that, yes, go make this one, I'm a lot more likely to go buy that product. And so involving your audience in the process, also another idea to be able to create more of an emotional tie-in. And maybe this is with NFTs and communities and Discord, where some of the future of commerce is heading.
So Liran's jumping into kind of what our last question is, and you guys have all led into this with talking about building awesome creative and leaning into like new trends in creative and content, and then even branding community. What we want to close with is just, what are those trends that are worth leaning into, that you guys are kind of leaning into? Steve, I know TikTok's a new experience for you, and
Yes.
you've been throwing out some dance moves.
We were just talking about this. I mean, Norm and I, we've been taking dance lessons for a year now. It's time to actually start putting out
I want to see a duet.
I can't wait. But I love where this conversation is going, because we're talking about building brand, building community, and actually letting your audience influence the product itself rather than come to market with a product. What are those trends? What else do you want to leave people with as far as, community building, trends worth leaning into, trends you've steered away from even in 2022?
I feel like any brand needs to be putting out content. It doesn't have to be TikTok. I just happen to like TikTok because it feels to me it's like a much better way of getting the word out than Instagram, for example.
Yeah.
I have TikToks that I put out that are still getting traffic six months to a year later, whereas Instagram, you might go viral, but it only lasts 2 days or 3 days.
So true.
So that's why I like TikTok, YouTube, podcasting. Well, maybe not necessarily podcasting if you're new, and then the written word too. I think that blogging is actually underserved in the e-com community. Like there's a tons of keywords that are just super easy to rank for. Because people aren't creating written content about it.
Right. Because people have shifted so much to social, I mean, blogging to me seems so much like early 2000s, right? Like mom blogs and stuff. And a lot of that shifted to social. But I guess the benefit is that you have the SEO value of a blog versus social media.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Norm, what about you? What are the trends you're spending time on these days? What are you thinking about the most in 2022 beyond the basics?
Content was just mentioned, and we do a lot of content. I think Neil Patel said, don't publish a blog article unless it's the best blog article. So we write 1,500 word blog articles. We understand how to format it. So if you don't know how to format a blog article, you should probably research that. Things have changed, but I believe, who was it? Steve Weidman said that 85% of SEO is content right now, content driven. And if you've got good quality content, that's going to drive a ton of business. So what I do before I pre-launch, I do a pre-launch. So before I get everything done, I usually have around 4 to 8 good quality blog articles ready. The other part to this is brand consistency. So I want to make sure that the social media side is up with a few posts that I've picked that I've chosen the right social media articles, and that my brand voice is exactly what I want it to be. So Amazon right now, let's stick with Amazon, they're saying they want communities. Now with A+ pages, they're saying here's a section for your brand story. With your storefront, here's a follow button. With your posts, here's a follow button. With your live, here's your follow button. They announced last week that you have to have 1,000 followers to use this now. So it used to be like in their beta, you could just go out there and do it. Now you have to have 1,000 followers. They're telling everybody they want you to build a brand, and that is different. Now there's a lot of people that are still doing wholesale or retail arbitrage, and that's fine. This business model, when you build that brand, you want to make sure that when you launch, that you can go sideways. So if you're into the soap section, like the Dr. Squatches of the world,
Sex
you
soap.
want to make, what's that?
If you're selling sex soap.
Yes, yes. So you want to make sure you can go wide. So you've got the bath bombs, you've got, any of the liquid soaps, but anything that you can do to build the brand. So I think right at the very beginning, it's very important that you can get the domain, get the trademark on your domain, have somebody come in and professionally come up with even a one page or 1 page plus blog content tied into your Amazon listing. And even I'll go one step further. It's still really great is press releases. There was a company that we did some work with, and Amazon called them. And so Amazon called them and said, what are you doing? And stop. And what we had done is we'd knocked Amazon out of first place and second place for DSP advertising on Amazon and Amazon advertising, or
Wow.
vice versa.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was on the first release. That was on the first
Wow.
release of content. So it was a high-end targeted press release, content, and a blog or a podcast that nobody was going to hear. So these are all things that are very powerful. And I'm going to hook back to Google My Business, Google Business Profile. It's all about brand right now for Google Business Profile. And it doesn't have to be a bricks and mortar. Tying that in to your Amazon store, Shopify, whatever it is, that's another way to go. It's all about community, brand community, brand culture.
Steve, in your world, how does content and community play together? And I know in your product niche, maybe it's a little different. Curious about how you build that. Obviously, text message is one nugget you've given everybody, but is there anything else?
One thing that also works pretty well to get people to buy more is like a loyalty program.
Yeah.
I know this stuff works on me all the time, but the people who genuinely like our products, they love it. And we for our loyalty program, we just give out our own products and we personalize them. So it doesn't cost us anything, but the perceived value is actually really high. One thing that we also like to do, and this is just a quick tip to get SMS subscribers, we'll give away free product if you give us your SMS. And what we do is we actually go to our manufacturer and we say, hey, what do you have on clearance? We'll take it, right? And so we're giving away something for free that costs us 15 cents, but the perceived value is like $15.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's a cool idea. I love it. You guys have offered such incredible insights today. And what I really, really appreciate, if you're a beginner, I know we had some beginners on the call, this focus on starting with the basics, building the basics, maintaining those. These are guys who have done this for 10 to 15 years, are doing the same things consistently, but always learning. And so leaning into those trends, looking at the data, all amazing insights. Heard a lot about brand community, creative optimization. So thanks so much to our amazing panelists. And there are a few questions we didn't get to answer just based on time because there's such great content. So we will be pushing those out in our blog and email and giving you guys the opportunity to stay in touch. I know that we just pushed through chat ways to follow up with Steve and Norm and Liran. We are really lucky to have you guys today. I can't thank you enough for being here. So appreciate you. And if you guys are interested in building a growth plan or funding the marketing side of your business, go to 8fig.co. We'd love to help you out. We'll give away a free planning session just to help you get started. So thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.